and welcome to those of you watching Tigrai TV on satellite television as well as on our social media platforms, Facebook and YouTube. I'm Sablor Lama and I'm here with the news for the hour. Moving on to the first news. In the past 6 years, Tigrayans were subjugated to mass killings, weaponization of sexual violence, ethnic cleansing, destruction of public and private properties. These devastations were accompanied by various rhetoric demonizing on Tigrayans on different social media platforms, predominantly on Facebook. On Monday, the Global Society of Tigrayan Scholars and Professionals issued a correspondence to Metaverse to call for an immediate end of its policy of inaction and reluctance in taking down genocidal and hateful contents against Tigrayans. Our reporter Fanuel Emiru has more on that.
GSTS, Global Society of Tigrayan Scholars and Professionals, issued a correspondence to Metaverse on Monday, calling for an immediate policy shift of reluctance and inaction towards hateful and genocidal rhetoric against Tigrayans on its platform, mainly in Facebook. GSTS requested to improve its online safety moderation in Ethiopia, especially regarding contents directly related to the war on Tigray and the ongoing genocide targeting Tigrayans. According to a report by CNN, Facebook knew about the call for mass killings of Tigrayans by Fano vigilante group but shamefully chose an action. GSTS said Tigrayans in Amhara region and the rest of Ethiopia have been victims of extrajudicial killing following hate speech spread on Facebook, and that it believes this is due to Facebook's deliberate policy of inaction and dysfunctional content monitoring team for Ethiopian languages. The correspondent strongly stated that the people of Tigray needed detail of explanation why Meta has chosen the policy of inaction in the ongoing genocidal war on Tigray. The GSTS said it believes that constructive engagement is the first step to tackle genocidal contents and that it will always remain ready to cooperate with Meta in tackling the spread of hate speech on its platform in the context of the ongoing genocide targeting Tigrayans.
For the past 17 months of conflict, the people of Tigray have seen unspeakable atrocities, including massacre, deliberate starvation of civilians, and the use of sexual violence as a weapon. In an oral question in the UK Parliament on Monday, Baroness Joyce Annelly said that perpetrators of international crimes in the war on Tigray should be held accountable.
Could forget what is happening in Tigray, where for 17 months there has been a conflict which, as the Noble Order said, has led to the mass starvation of almost 7 million people, where blockades have been used in order to starve people to death, and where rape has been used as a weapon of war. Doesn't the Noble Lord agree that these are war crimes, and that within his own department we should be collecting the evidence, and will he give an assurance that we will bring to justice those who are responsible for these heinous crimes?
The siege on Tigray that has blocked the entry of essential food items into the region has left millions in a dire situation. Our reporter Haila Gabru spoke to Weldai Hailu and Gabra Amlak Tesfai in Fremantle Center for Elderly regarding the impact of the all-encompassing siege in their daily lives. Let's take a look.
Following the forced evacuation of Ethiopian forces and their allies from the most parts of Tigray, the government of Ethiopia has put the region under all-encompassing siege by blocking all the roads that led to Tigray for over 9 months now. In doing so, the central government has terminated basic services such as telecommunications, electricity and banking. These all have made it impossible for civilians to get on with their lives. Many are suffering from lack of food and medication. Beneficiaries at Fremantle Center for the Elderly, Psychiatric Patients and Children, which is a charity organization based in Mekelle, say that their lives have been greatly affected by the complete siege.
We are suffering from different disease. Many of us have chronic illnesses. However, there is no medicine, foodstuffs as well. We are in desperate situation. The elderly and children are dying due to hunger and lack of medication in front of our eyes.
We used to take medicines prescribed by doctors, but now we couldn't find it, following the blockade in Tigray. Can you imagine? Our last fate is death.
Almaz Gabre-Cherkos, who is looking after the elderly, psychiatric patients and children, expressed her frustration that the center would be closed unless immediate attention and help is being given by the international community as soon as possible.
They are getting sick. Though we made attempts to take them into hospitals, they couldn't get proper medication due to the siege.
If things continue worse like this, the organization may be closed soon. It is well known that this charitable organization brought the patients all from streets. I am afraid they will go back to the streets they used to live in. These are the orphan children. We also have people with psychological disorder. Therefore, I plead to the international community and the members of the Tigray diaspora to help them in any way they can.
Mahari Barihu, board chairman of the charitable organization on his part, stated that the care receivers are fully the vulnerable, such as the elderly, psychiatric patients and children. Mr. Mahari also added that purchasing medicine is not affordable due to the all-encompassing siege. Thus, he called on to various humanitarian partners to fill the gap of his organization's medical stocks.
There is no medicine at all. Even we couldn't purchase from private pharmacies because we have been requested 6,000 birr per patient in a month. Though this problem is common across Tigray, ours is odd in terms of its type and weight. All in all, the international community, Tigrayan diaspora members, and other generous bodies must immediately help this charitable organization so that it will treat its patients like what it usually does.
Care receivers and caregivers at Frame Nator Center for the Elderly, Psychiatric Patients and Children, Maghreb, demanded an immediate health care and food assistance. Besides this, they have also called on the international community to put strong pressure on the central government of Ethiopia to end the siege and save millions of lives of Tigrayans without any precondition.
The Eritrean troops have committed several atrocities in Gulamakhada district of eastern Tigray. Residents of the district told Tigrai TV that Eritrean forces have atrociously killed many civilians in their homes and denied their relatives to bury the bodies of the victims. Kabramul Dabrahan reports.
After the conflict broke out in Tigray in November 2020, the Ethiopian forces, together with their allied Eritrean troops, have committed many atrocities in the region. Gulamakhada, a district located in the eastern part of Tigray, one of the areas wherein severe extrajudicial killings were committed by the Eritrean troops. Tasfu Zauda is a resident of Dashim, a vicinity in the district of Gulamakhada. He has lost his 3 sons who were shot dead on January 6, 2021, at the doorsteps of their house by the Eritrean troops last year during the invasion of Tigray by the Ethiopian forces and their allies from Eritrea.
They killed them shooting 5 to 9 bullets on each. My elder son Alam was lying dead here, and his younger brother Hadush here, and Fitsum Tasfu here. 3 of them are my children. And from other residents, Jonas Taddesa was lying here, Elias Walde Gabriel was here, Nahom Kuflomin here, Tolde Taddesa here, and Halafum Takhala here. There were 8 bodies abandoned here. The soldiers didn't allow us to bury the dead. We buried 8 of them here in our compound in 4 graves because we were threatened by the soldiers not to bury them in the church.
January 6, 2021 was the last time I saw my brothers. From that day on, I didn't see them.
Maza Gabratadik's 2 children were also shot dead by the Eritrean soldiers on January 6, 2021, and their bodies were buried in their compound.
It was early at dawn. Many soldiers, who were at the top of the hills, came down here and forced my son to kneel down, then killed him along with other neighbors. At that moment, all I could do was putting shawls on the body of my sons, my relatives, and my neighbors as well. They were educated and matured men. The soldiers atrociously killed them all. These are photographs of my sons, Tolde Dabrahan and Jonas Taddesa, and my other son, Barihu Taddesa, who was a doctor, was also killed right there. 8 people were buried across the yard.
Dorit Sagay, a local official of Gulamakhada, says that innumerable atrocities were committed in the district by the invaders and many residents were forced to abandon their homes because their properties were looted. He also adds that a vast part of the land is still occupied by the Eritrean troops.
Many people were shot and killed. Their age ranges from 1-year-old child to 90 years old elders, and they include religious leaders, women, scholars, farmers, and civil servants. Many civilians' houses were burned down. They have destroyed all their properties, including their agricultural tools, a hospital, 5 health centers, and also a primary hospital that is used to give healthcare service. Even to the Eritrean neighbors as well were all destroyed. Healthcare service in the district have come to a halt due to the looting on medications from the health facilities. More than 5 churches were also set ablaze and turned to ashes.
Schools all around Tigray were one of the main targets of the systematic destruction of infrastructures during the 8 months occupation by the Ethiopian government and its allies. The Allied forces looted, vandalized, and destroyed schools with the sole intent of denying Tigrayan children their right to education and thereby affecting their mental development. The war and the ongoing siege have kept children away from school for almost 2 academic years now. Sarun Tsagay has more on this.
During the first 8 months of the over 17 months long war on Tigray, several infrastructures were deliberately damaged. Schools all around Tigray were one of the main targets of the systematic destruction. They were looted, vandalized, and totally damaged by the Allied forces during their occupation for 8 months. Even afterwards, they were targeted by drone attacks. We interviewed children in Maqala who have been away from school for more than 2 years, and they tell us that they are unable to go back to school, mainly because they have no functioning school to go back to since their schools are systematically destroyed.
I
was in 4th grade when the war started. I should have been 6th grader by now. But since our school was looted and destroyed, I am unable to go back.
We're unable to go back to school because we have no schools to go back to. They are all destroyed.
Months ago, we weren't even going outside of our house, let alone to school, because of the daily drone bombardment.
The children also say that they are unable to go to school due to the 9 months long and continuing siege on Tigray. They say they are starving and consuming the little food they have left and don't have the energy.
We just eat small portion of food if we get any. Sometimes we sleep without eating. We are starving due to the siege.
We are starving. We have no access to food, and we can't move without food. We don't have the energy to do anything because there is starvation in Tigray.
The children called on all concerned bodies to lift the blockade to let urgently needed aid in. They also called on the international community to address their suffering and take immediate action.
We, the people of Tigray, need special attention because we, especially children, are under immense suffering. Children are starving and suffering in darkness. Children are the hope of tomorrow. So I call on people of the world, children of the world, the international community, as a whole, help us.
The war must stop. We need to go to school and be able to live our dreams.
People are starving and suffering. We need food and medicine.
Everybody is at the brink. We are under huge suffering, and the world must stand with us and help us.
The war and the all-encompassing siege has created a humanitarian catastrophe that has engulfed Tigray. As a result, millions of IDPs are in desperate need of humanitarian aid throughout the region. Our reporters visited Lekatit Israel Celeste Secondary School in Maqala, which has been repurposed into an IDP center, and spoke to the internally displaced people about the war and its impact on their lives. Sara Kalali has the details.
Since the beginning of the deadly war in November 2020, hundreds of thousands of Tigrayans have had their properties ransacked, been driven out of their homes due to mass killings, ethnic cleansing, and systematic sexual abuses inflicted on them by the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, their Eritrean allies, as well as the Amhara Special Forces and the Fano Vigilante Group. Millions of Tigrayans had to flee on foot and found themselves in IDP camps or other shelters. Yet thousands of others were unable to escape, dying in thousands on the road.
On the road from Humara to Takaza, the sides of the road were covered with dead bodies. At least 50 people have died, especially young people. The enemies would drag them aside, claiming they were armed, and we couldn't do anything about it, while they took our sons and brothers. There was a man named Mr. Gabrat Sadik, who was traveling with us along with his son. Then the enemies took his son and killed him in front of us. The elderly father didn't say anything. He had to quietly come along with us, as if nothing happened.
Mass displacement of Tigrayans from their homes has created a community of people that desperately look for food, medicine, and other sorts of help from aid groups. And since the beginning of the siege 9 months ago, that resulted in a complete blockade of humanitarian aid, IDPs who fortunately escaped the gruesome killings and lost or were separated from loved ones are being forced to endure other sufferings.
The main problem we are facing here is lack of food.
We used to eat once a day before, but now even that is gone.
Some people have resorted to begging on the streets. Unaccompanied and separated children have went back to their home, alone in search of food, which are currently missing.
Lack of food, lack of soap and water, overcrowded sleeping rooms with no clean and adequate sanitation available, and poor health care are just a few of the multifaceted problems IDPs face in camps. Unable to bear with the starvation, many have sold what little they had of their belonging in exchange for food.
Our children are starving here. There are no sleeping beds. Even those who had one have sold them in exchange for food. There is no medicine. There are people with diabetes, HIV, and cancer. They are really suffering.
There is no food for infantes. There is no soap, no oil, no sanitary pads, and due to lack of hair oil, 250 children have gotten rashes on their scalps.
Women and children are the most vulnerable of internally displaced people. Burtukan, a nurse who had also fled her hometown of Humara, feels the IDPs are not getting the attention they need. According to her, women who sustained such abuses have no chance to receive the adequate medical attention they need. She also added that due to the lack of food that the siege has created, many women were forced to look for odd jobs to make ends meet.
There are women who came here after being sexually abused. Some have delivered and some others have underwent abortion. These women are not getting the help that they need, like psychological support. Due to lack of food and other basics, women have resorted to looking for odd jobs at bars and other unwanted places. These women have went through so much already due to what has happened, and I hope they are paid more attention.
Children are also either going out to beg for food or are looking for jobs. Fiori is a 14-year-old girl from Satit Humara. She was separated from her mother while attempting to escape. She lived under the care of a man that was willing to let her stay with his family. She reunited with her mother in Maqala. Now Fiori is looking for a job so that she can provide something to eat for her mother and her little brother.
A woman offered me a job as a waitress. At first I took it happily, but later she required me to look after the restaurant at night. I don't like sleeping alone in the restaurant, so I declined.
With the humanitarian truce declared close to a couple of weeks now, IDP camps such as this one are yet to see the aid promised to them.
For the past 40 years, the people of Tigray have made a huge amount of investment on the agricultural sector. As a result, the sector had made a significant contribution to the rapid growth of the country in the past decades. However, now the sector could not progress as it was the main target of the Ethiopian forces and its allies when Tigray was under their occupation for 8 months and still is in some of its parts. Abil Zagabu reports.
Agriculture is the mainstay of Tigrayan economy. For the past 14 years, Tigray had a very promising agricultural investment with diversified types of crop and livestock production. The sector had significant contribution to the regional and national economy through the hard currency generation, supply of raw materials for manufacturing, subsidizing local market demands, employment creation, and technological transformation. However, the sector fell into multifaceted challenge right after the ascending of Abiy Ahmed, since his government gave much of its focus to fancy projects for shallow political support from the urban elites, dismantling EPRDF's hallmark policy, agricultural development leads industrialization, which did very great progress in changing lives of the rural and farmer community. The Ethiopian government didn't give an iota of attention to the agriculture sector in Tigray when it was suffering from erratic rainfall patterns and locust infestation for the past 4 years. In addition to this, Tigray was hampered from trading in agricultural inputs. Agricultural drone purchased by Tigrayan diaspora community to harness the danger of locust was curtailed from entering to Tigray in the winter of 2020. In the same year, FAO sprayer aircrafts provided service in the neighboring regions of Amhara and Afar, but was not allowed to do the same even in the adjacent areas of Tigray. More importantly, the devastating destruction of agricultural sector in Tigray occurred after the war on Tigray broke out in November 2020. The Ethiopian forces and their allies targeted on destroying the agricultural sector to weaken the potential of Tigrayans not only to fight but also to deprive their right to live as people. Farmlands burnt, grains robbed and stolen, perennial fruits, plants, and other seasonal crops intentionally cut and damaged, irrigation facilities significantly damaged, extension resource looted and destroyed, agricultural experts killed and harassed, livestock and poultry slaughtered and forcefully taken into Amhara and Eritrea. Moreover, Farmers were banned not to plow their farmlands, and they were told to bring permission from Eritrea officials to do so.
Notably, the overall agricultural infrastructure of Tigray have been demolished and looted. Yes, you have farmlands burned, irrigation facilities significantly damaged, exporters killed and harassed, livestock and poultry slaughtered, and forcibly taken to Amhara and Eritrea, even probably to the level of breed extinction. But the most significant to me was farmers were banned not to plow their farmlands, and they were told to get peppers from Eritrea.
A recent research conducted by Tigray University Scholars Association in Mekelle University with collaboration of Bureau of Agriculture has revealed that Tigray had produced only 33% of the estimated production, that is 8,968,543 quintals. The research has stated that weaponized chemical hazards such as phosphorus used by Ethiopian Air Force affected the lives of livestock, and its overall impact are under investigation.
And the war aggravated further to the deterioration of food insecurity and resulted in 6.5 million population to depend on emergency food aid. Weaponized chemical or phosphorus using by the Ethiopian Eritrean armed forces affect the livestock and human elements, and its impact is under investigation.
Bran Aida, an expert who has participated in the research, stated there was huge amount of private sector investment in western and southern Tigray before it was destroyed by Ethiopian forces and allies. He said the ongoing siege has made the investors unable to revive their investments.
While investments were in many parts of the region, Western Tigray and the Raya Plains had the major ones, attracting several business communities, including some foreign investors. The investors have great motivation at the moment to continue their business, but due to the siege, they are blocked from accessing the necessary technologies. They couldn't replace the equipment necessary to continue this development.
The ethnic cleansing campaign in western Tigray has forced many to flee their homes in search of security and shelter. This has been forced to depend on aid to fulfill its basic needs, and especially affected communities with special needs, as the blockade on humanitarian items makes it impossible to accommodate their conditions. Meron
Maharit Gabrahayot was a teacher at school for students with special needs in Walqait, Western Tigray, before the start of the conflict. She says she and her husband used to live a stable and happy life before the start of the conflict in November of 2020. That would bring with it an ethnic cleansing campaign that displaced over 1 million people from Western Tigray.
I received a diploma in special needs from Adwa Teachers College. My husband, Yamana Gabramedhin, he also has special needs like me. He graduated in sociology. I started my teaching career in Adeabo. I taught there for 3 years. Then I moved to Walqait and started working there. We hired a babysitter for our children during our working hours. Everything was fine. We were leading a happy life.
Shortly after the start of the conflict, Marhawit says she and her family would embark on a long and dangerous journey that would lead them to the IDP camps in Mala.
We were starving and thirsty all the way. It was very difficult, especially for the kids. They were crying and asking for food and water. It is agonizing to hear your children cry like that.
Marhawit says life has been unbearably difficult in the IDP camp, primarily due to 9 months long siege on the region that has hindered the delivery of much needed humanitarian aid into Tigray, and has denied access to basic services such as banking and communication.
We used to lead a happy life back in our hometown, even with our special needs. But now, even our children are suffering. Here we have no relatives, and thus we can't get any assistance. Of course, we were getting help from the community. But now even the ones who were helping us are in a difficult situation.